Hi, this is Janelle, and I am going to take you through the process, rather the thinking process that I go through when I am breaking down an essential learning standard. And before I get going on the actual process here, I just want to explain a few things on our document because I have added a few things that might look a little bit different than yours. I have added numbers up at the top, and I will explain that right now. The reason why I added these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, not 5, 6, 5, 5, is because this is how I really work through this process. And I just wanted to make sure that that was out there for you to look at and think about, and thought that would make us easier for us to follow through the process a little bit better. And the other thing that I added on there was this pre-assessment skills. And I put that on there, and I'll explain that when I get to that category. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So what I do first and foremost is, I think about this process as how I teach, anything in my classroom. And of course, we always want to start with a goal in mind. And we want to present that goal to our students so that they are fully aware of where they are headed with the learning that they are about to be exposed to and engaged in. And so that's why we're coming up with our essential standards, is because those are going to be our goals that we focus on with our students. The top goals that we're saying we definitely want our students to know these things when they leave our classrooms. So over here in column number 1, that is the actual standard copied and pasted directly from Iowa Core. So in my example, as you can see, it's language arts, I chose to put argumentative writing. So that's a huge standard, and it's one that my students actually tackled first semester. And so anyways, that's what I put over in that category. Yours is going to be whatever essential standard you are choosing for your essentials. All right, so then I want to explain this part actually before I move on to number 2, the breakdown into student-friendly vocabulary. I can. This is where we're talking about our learning targets. And so learning targets isn't even on this breakdown sheet, but I wanted to make sure that I explain that. You have your goal, and then you break that down into your student-friendly learning targets. And so that's really where that came from. And you could essentially list your learning targets below, right here, below your standard, if you would like to, if you have them already figured out for your standards. If not, you can do that later. Move on to, so after I have my goal, I'm going to move on to the example of rigor. What does proficient look like for this learning goal? That's what we are trying to show our students. When we present to them, here's your goal, this is what you're trying to reach. Now, here's an example of how, what proficient looks like. This is what I want to see. I want to see something like this and that's going to tell me that you've met this goal. And so this might look different. I have a couple different options on here to show you. I'm going to scroll down so you can see it a little bit better. You might actually have an example of an actual end piece. So like for language arts, we might have an example of a 10th grade writing piece if it's a 10th grade language arts goal. We might have an example of an actual speech that, given by someone of their age for speaking and listening goal. If you're in reading, you might have a video of a student performing the standard, because a lot of the reading ones are a lot of thinking, standards, and they're a little bit harder to provide an example for. So you might have just a video of someone going through that. For history, it might be a writing piece, it might be a presentation, a Venn diagram, etc. It could be multiple pieces of examples that you put here, just depending on what your goal is. Or you might have a rubric. So that's what I have down here too. I have a rubric, and on that rubric, the goal is broken down and it's broken down according to the essential learning pieces that are a part of that goal. So really learning targets, or it could be some of your key vocabulary or your key concepts, or, however you have broken that goal down. That would be a part of your rubric. And that's something that you could put on here for an example of rigor. And, so you want to describe proficiency to your students, and then that's what you want to put here. And then this is going to tell others the level of rigor you're asking for or expecting for that goal. So after you have defined what proficiency looks like, then we move into our prerequisite skills. Okay, what are these prerequisite skills that our students need to know in order to reach that goal? And this is where I put pre-assessment. So when we give a pre-assessment to our students, then that's really what we are assessing are these prerequisite skills. It's not the goal that we're assessing, it's the prerequisite skills that lead up to that goal. And the reason why, we do it that way is so that we have a really good idea, and we've gathered as much information on the gaps and the strengths, that lead up to that goal, so that we can differentiate as needed and move students toward that goal as effectively as possible. So right here, what I did was I took my goal, I was over here, I was reading through this goal, and on the Common Core it has breakdowns of, the different pieces that go into argument writing. So I took that and I really thought through, okay, what are the key vocabulary pieces here that I need to pull out of that, or the key skills? And that's what I put over here in bullet points. And just it's a very thoughtful process when you go through figuring out this prerequisite skill area. And that's, this part right here really took me quite a bit of time, really, to come up with all of those vocabulary words and skills, because I did think through the process a lot. Okay, so then after you've given your pre-assessment, you have all of them listed there, and now I'm back in teacher mode. Okay, what do you do next? Well, you instruct according to what your pre-assessment told you. You perform learning activities according to what your pre-assessment data told you. And it's going to be based upon what you have in that box in category number or column number 3. Okay, so then eventually you're going to need to formatively assess. Okay, well, what benchmarks are you going to use to measure your student progress? And this is going to depend on your pre-assessment data in most cases, and learning activities that are designed for this goal. But you do need to have some formatives in your toolbox so that you can effectively and efficiently assess when needed. And so just examples that I have here, I have a key understanding assignment. Really what it did, it assessed these main skills or vocabulary words, really, and the ones that showed that, they really needed a lot of work on the pre-assessment. That's what that formative assessment assessed. But yes, I did instruction before that. Or you might do something along the lines of, you might grab something that's over here in your rigor box, and you might have them break that apart and, just really tear that down and show that they truly understand those concepts or those vocabulary words, or they know those skills that are a part of that rigor piece that you have listed over there. And that's what this formative assessment and this formative assessment did, because that's exactly what I had my students do. And I took that information and I worked with those kids that needed more work in that area. Kahoot, that's a great formative assessment tool to use if you just need some quick data that's going to tell you, do they get this or do they not? And this I used when I had done plenty of instruction, plenty of differentiation, plenty of interventions on all of these items listed over here in column number 3. And then I did this quick little formative assessment to see if they were ready to move on to the more in-depth part of argumentative writing. which was actually taking those and then turning them into their own writing. So as you can see, there's lots of different ways that you can formatively assess, but the key with this breakdown list is that you have gone through this thought process and you have put some formative assessments that you could use for this goal that are here, that are in your toolbox, so to speak, that you can pull from when you need them. Yes, you might have to adjust them, but you have a starting point, and you have, it's going to make the process a lot easier for you when you're actually teaching this. Okay, then what my brain does, what my thought process goes to, is I jump from formative assessments over to extension standards and needed interventions. Well, that's because my formative assessment data will guide my extensions and my needed interventions. And so that's why I jumped over summative assessments. This data over here is going to tell me, okay, what should I do for these kids that are not getting this? Well, I just brainstormed things that I could do, different types of interventions that I could provide, different types of extensions that I could provide. And as you look at this list, interventions such as provide one-on-one instruction or small group instruction for the targeted skills that are lacking. Okay, that just gives me an idea right away when I look at this. Provide graphic organizers for these students. Maybe I need multiple examples of these targeted skills that they are lacking at this point. Maybe I need printouts. Maybe I need folders with examples for them. Maybe I need to post examples on my website. Maybe I need to post examples on Schoology and then work with them on those. So not just give it to them, but have it there for them and then work with them and talk through it with them. For my extensions, what I did was I took the hardest really concepts for argumentative writing and I put them over here. So counterclaims, okay, those were hard for my students to understand and to actually write. And so that's what I put over here, and finding more evidence. You can't, I talk to my kids so much about finding evidence to back up what you are claiming to be true. And that's something that I felt like could be an extension. They can always dig deeper into evidence. So that's how I came up with those two columns right there. Okay, then back to summative assessments. Well, what my summative assessment is it's the same as over here in my example of rigor. So I summatively assess them by using this rubric. The same rubric that was over here that showed, the rigor, the amount of rigor I was asking for. And the language arts, they perform a writing piece. So final writing piece will be assessed according to the following rubric. So that's what I put there. For you, yes, it might look a little bit different, but it might not. You might use the same thought process that I used to come up with your summative assessment. So how will this work benefit our students? And I hope that is a question that, we're all asking ourselves as we go through this breakdown of our essential learning standards. Because yes, this is a lot of work for us and a lot of thought for us to go through. But it's going to benefit them in many ways. For one, it's going to allow us to pinpoint our exact gaps. So when someone asks us, where are your gaps? We're going to be able to answer that question. And we're going to be able to answer, the question of who needs to be further challenged. But we're going to be able to say in the specific areas in which they need to be challenged. It's going to teach our kids how to be goal-oriented. This will make the learning cycle seem more fluid. And the learning will make more sense to them. And it will lead us to being able to better choose teaching strategies along the way for specific learning needs. So I hope that you see that this work is very beneficial for our students, because I hope this helps you continue your work. And I just ask that you don't forget the reason why we are doing this work. It's for our students. Thank you.